where's the evidence? There's got to be evidence somewhere here. Is she even still in the apartment? I think she might have left. What's happening, guys? Today we're going to be looking at some demo gameplay I recorded while playing this upcoming game, Shadows of Doubt. The premise of this game is a super cool idea. You play as a detective in this hyper-industrialized version of the 1980s. Kind of has this Blade Runner feel to it, but without the sci-fi. But what really sets this game apart is that, as far as I'm aware, the entirety of the game is procedurally generated, from the case that you're working on and even the town that you're working in. In the video you see today, I am playing on a seed that I generated called Hong Kong, and for this very first case in the demo, they do have you start off on a partially generated case. It's like a tutorial, so the details of it are the same, but the names and the places are different. Before we get into that, however, this puppy here has threatened me at gunpoint, and he says if you don't subscribe right now, he's going to kidnap my grandmother and force her to work for him at his Filipino massage parlor.
Not hookers. Massage therapist.
So Nana is saying thank you in advance. Jumping into our gameplay now, it starts you waking up in your apartment, and through some notes laying around you can piece together that you are a recently let go police officer who is now a detective. You get a creepy phone call on your landline, but once you pick up the phone there's no one on the other end but static. Searching around the room at that point, you'll find a note slid under the door which reads, "Call Nadia Nolan." Then we get introduced to the evidence board where you can keep track of clues or don your tinfoil hat and talk about lizard people.
Jesus Christ, that right there is the mail. Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail with you all day, okay? Pepe Sylvia,
At this point, we're advised to check out the phone directory and look up Nadia, which gives us her address, but before we head out we need to grab our equipment. Turns out we put it in a locked box, so we have to find some lockpicks to break into it. To find the lockpicks, we have to check around our apartment. Everything in the game that's a drawer or cabinet of any sort can be opened, and you can find all sorts of stuff, from notes to lockpicks, keys, etc. Once we do find some and we manage to pick the lock, we're rewarded with some cash, a bunch more lockpicks, and some detective tools such as a thumbprint analyzer which will come in handy shortly. I find another note before leaving written by the player's ex-girlfriend which details the passcode to the safe, which is
1 1 2 2 2 3 3 3 4 4 4. That's the stupidest combination I ever heard in my life. That's the kind of thing an idiot would have on his luggage.
Once inside the safe, I get a code breaker, which I will cover in more detail later, along with lockpicks. Now it's time to grab our apartment key and head out. Using my evidence board, I'm able to plot a route to the address I got for Nadia earlier. On my way out, I encounter a strange bug where every person I see in the dimly lit entrance to an apartment building seems to think I'm stalking them for some reason. Outside, I find myself in a beautifully generated voxel world, which appears to be snowing. In the background, I can hear some corporate advertisement coming from loudspeakers. I find Nadia's building and head inside to her apartment, 1202 Sato Building. I knock on the door, but there's no answer. The game informs me about locked doors and security cameras. Inside most buildings, these cameras are always watching for criminal activity, but you can disarm these if you can find their breaker box, which can be lockpicked to gain access. I'm also informed, however, that sometimes you can find a key underneath the doormat, and sure enough, this time there is. Once inside, I'm immediately notified that I should be on the lookout for ventilation shafts, because like the good snake boy I am, I may need to use them for sneaking out of this joint since I'm trespassing. More disturbing, however, is the pixelated blood on the floor. There's been an accident in this room, and it's not just the feng shui. I find the body in the corner, and I'm able to take the victim's fingerprints, as well as collect a rough time of death, sometime between 11:30 p.m. and 12:30 a.m. Searching the victim further gives me an impressive amount of profile options. It's not just a name and photo, but even things like voice identification, date of birth, job title, whether or not they wear glasses. Although most of those are a mystery for this victim, I'm curious what future cases could be like with this amount of detail involved. Looking around further, I find an unused pistol and a work ID that confirms the cadaver is in fact Nadia, the one I was sent to look in on. I find strange threatening notes and a receipt from a diner. The safe in her bedroom has been cracked, so I run a fingerprint scan to find a second pair of prints, probably our killer's. I find some other seemingly unrelated documents, and a receipt from a bar tab. A prompt on my screen informs me that by dialing a certain number, I can figure out who called Nadia's phone last. I get that number and compare it to a number found in Nadia's address book next to the phone. This gives me the address of their last known call. Lastly, the game prompts me to search the trash where I find another receipt from a diner. This tab is very recent though, taking place just the night before. Apparently I tripped a silent alarm somehow, and now the corporate enforcers have shown up to investigate.
Stop right there, criminal scum.
So I hop into the ventilation system I found in the bathroom and hightail it out of there. Now I will say I find the ventilation thing to be pretty cool, but if you don't quickly find your way out, it gets super disorienting. Like, you spend too long in here and you start to lose track of which way is up, so eventually you just have to hop out wherever you can find, which in my case is some random tenant's apartment. I stealthily snuck around and found his door out, but for some reason I had to pick the lock even though I'm on the inside. Now, I'd like to make a complaint about the lock-picking system in general here. Normally games use a mini-game of some sort for picking locks, and while I don't have an issue with games skipping that, I feel like it would be far superior to what is in place currently. Lock-picking in Shadows of Doubt currently is just a numbers game, with some locks breaking more picks than others, but you either have the picks for it or you don't. It does take time, so I suppose that element works well here where you could be caught, but I really think a live-action minigame would be better for their current system. I'm hoping that they intend on doing that eventually, but it's just a low-priority feature for them. After exiting Nadia's building, I'm instructed that I need to visit City Hall and collect what's called a resolution form. These are how you can finish or resolve your case. Once you believe you have all the necessary evidence to convict someone, you can put their name down on this paper. You get additional money for optional answers, such as the killer's address, whether or not they are handcuffed, and evidence that places them at the scene of the crime. From here I have a few options, but I decide that stopping in at the address where Nadia's last phone call came from might be a good place to start. When I knock on the door, a woman answers, but she won't give me the time of day, and she won't even respond to questioning. This alone is suspicious, but not nearly enough for a conviction, so I piss off for now to target a different lead. I decide to follow up on the bar tab found in Nadia's apartment for a place called Eagle Tavern. When I arrive, I find the lights are off and the door is locked.
But it's a lucky thing I had my pieces.
Your pieces?
My gun.
Oh.
Anyway, I started
Lock picking.
Once inside the room, it's pitch black, and I'm on camera. I am committing an illegal activity, but I don't know if the cameras can see me since it's so dark. I sneak over to the management office behind the bar and pull out my codebreaker. The way this device works is that after placing it on an electronic pin-coded door lock for a few moments, it reads out the pin number to me. These can be used twice before they're used up. And simple as that, I'm in. I shut off the cameras once I get in, and then access the computer with the same pin as the door. Now that I have access to the security footage, I scour each hour that's been recorded before realizing that Nadia's receipt was from December 22nd. Today is January 3rd, and these files only keep 2 days worth of footage. Another dead end. I check my evidence board again to see what other leads I have, when I come back across this note which reads, "Tonight, you need a piece. Go to Finch Resources. Knock, then give the password. Clam." I know what you're thinking, you filthy degenerate. Despite the wording in the seafood password, this is not a brothel, it's an arms dealer. Once I tell her the password, she gives me access to a cornucopia of weapons and ammunition. This could come in handy later, but I'm tight on cash for now, so it's just context to the case. For obvious reasons, when I ask about Nadia, she isn't interested in discussing other clientele. I decide to check in on the other receipt Nadia had in her apartment. This one's for a diner. When I ask the guy at the register about Nadia, he only gives me a vague building where he's seen her before, but nothing about her being here. I'm hoping this is something they're working on because he should be able to give me some sort of response about whether or not she's been to this diner before. Is she a regular? Did anything seem off about her the last time you saw her? Things of that nature. Anyways, I tell him that I'm a health inspector, and because he was born yesterday, he goes, okay, you're still gonna need a guest pass. He then proceeds to fleece me for $50.
Could you, get less stuff?
I oblige, though, because I still need access to the back office, and this seems like the easiest way for now. Now, what's weird about this guest pass is that no one cares anymore if I access areas that would normally be trespassing, but at the same time they don't give me access to them. The code to get into the office is written on a note behind the bar, however, so I punch that in and start looking at the camera footage. Finally, some luck. At the same time as the receipt is printed for, I find Nadia, and she's with someone else whose face I add to my evidence board. I ask Register Man again, and he's still about as useful as the tap water in Flint, Michigan. Checking over the table they were sitting at, I find a note. It suggests that Nadia visit a support group at this diner on Wednesday nights, and it has a name signed on the bottom, Alana Hendricks. I pull Alana's address from the phone book and head that way. I knock on the door and verify her name. She is indeed Alana. Then I ask if she knows Nadia. She isn't super helpful, though. She admits to knowing Nadia, confirms her workplace, and tells me that Alana loves chess. I think this is bugged, though, because in prior playthroughs I've been able to let them know they may be in danger during these situations, where their friend is suddenly dead and they can cough up more information for the case. I ask if she knows the arms dealer I met earlier, and that doesn't get me any answers either. Finally, I ask if I can take a look around her apartment, to which she obliges, but I don't find much. So basically I get nothing from this lead, except Alana's fingerprints, which I use to confirm she isn't the killer. Time to head out again. By prompt as a lead from the game, I decide to check the apartment phone router in the basement of Nadia's building. This requires breaking into the basement and sneaking past some sentry turrets. I sort of was aware that I already knew all of this, right? I had the phone number for who called Nadia last, and I also had her address book which detailed this number, so I probably should have disregarded this prompt. But I was running out of options and I wanted to make sure that I couldn't get any extra information out of this anyway. So with that, I think I can confirm that these phone routers are only useful if you have the phone number but not the address. A lot of options now. I decide to head back to the caller's address at Freyheit Apartments, but this time I ain't knocking. I need to get in there and take a look around. But first I disable the nearby security cameras and also activate the security door. I've never messed with this before, but it drops down this giant metal door which blocks the stairwell, keeping everyone in or out except through the ventilation. I pick the lock on our suspect's door, sneak inside, and turn off the hallway lights. This triggers the woman inside to come take a look-see, so I hide in the bathroom. Once she returns to wherever she came from, I slip into the study and start searching the room. I pull out my fingerprint scanner, and what do you know? It's the same prints as the ones we found in Nadia's apartment. I take this as pretty much a confirmation at this point, but I still need to find something more concrete. I find a business card with the name Alba Hernandez, but not much else in the study, so I sneak back out. She's not in the living room or the kitchen, so once again, I empty it out. I check into one of the bedrooms before I realize she must have left the apartment. In the bedroom, I find a rap sheet which entails that Alba is prone to violence. I check the other room and find an oddly written letter. Praise Uncle. He will lead us to our Eden. Blood is sweet when it is shed with reason. And with that, we can confirm that this bitch is crazier than Roseanne Barr on an Ambien-fueled Twitter rant, but not necessarily to Nadia. I find another note. I know I'm not supposed to write this down, but I can't forget it again. Count backwards from 8. I take this to be a pin number, and sure enough, boom goes the dynamite. But even here, the only thing in the safe are some sync disks, which I'm not sure what these do exactly, but I know this demo isn't long enough for them to matter. At this point, I'm getting concerned. I have good reason to believe Alba is the killer, but except for the fingerprints, I can't pin her, and the clock on my demo time is running out. So I check everything in the apartment. Every drawer, cabinet, countertop, hell, I even check the medicine cabinet, but I come up empty-handed. My last thought without just cuffing her is to go check on Alana one more time. But instead of knocking on the door, I find that Starch Cola enforcers are in Alana's room. Now Alana has been killed as well, and I can't get in there to collect evidence because of the enforcers. Enough is enough at this point. I've decided to arrest Alba right now. I managed to catch her in the stairwell, and I slap the cuffs on her. Once she is handcuffed, I decide to run her fingerprints just in case, and they match up with the ones found in her apartment, as well as the ones found in Nadia's apartment. I now fill out my resolution report and head to City Hall to turn it in. City Hall informs me that I was correct, and I get plus 30 social credit?
我很重要，我爱更尊重中国更中国人。
At this point, I have solved the case, and I get paid for my work, but I'm a little disappointed here. Never getting the concrete evidence really bothers me. And outside of that weird note that alluded to Alba being in some sort of cult, we don't necessarily even have a motive. I'm assuming at this point it's my fault. There probably was a piece of evidence that would have been what I'm looking for, but it is also possible that the game just bugged out. I've seen it bug out in a few odd ways, so I can't say for sure. So that wraps up the case itself, but I'd like to discuss some of the things I edited out now. For one thing, the game is pretty rough still. I cut out a lot of bugs, but this was actually not the first playthrough. I had to replay the story twice, and I learned my lesson on this one and saved often because of game crashes. I also had plenty of smaller, but still fairly substantial bugs. I couldn't tweak my evidence board all the time. Like, it just wouldn't allow me to make connections between certain pieces of evidence. I'm also fairly certain that the sentry turrets and the cameras themselves are sort of a work in progress too, because sometimes I feel like they should have spotted me, but nothing would happen. And I don't know if that's a bug or if it's a feature and I just don't understand the intricacies of it. Overall, I really love the premise of this game though, and I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on it. I mean, making a game like this with procedurally generated voxel environments for a detective game with procedurally generated cases, it definitely has big potential, especially once they get the bugs worked out if they continue to add new content. I've seen release dates kind of all over the place here. I think the Steam page last I checked was still saying to be announced. I've seen a couple places say 2023. If we do see it in 2023, I imagine it will be early access. I think it's going to take a while to get all of the bugs worked out. Okay, guys, time to do what my father wishes he had done and wrap it up here. If you want to see more content like this in the future, please subscribe and tap the notifications bell for more. And let me know what you guys think about the game in its current state and what you think the future could hold for this. If you want to follow the action, I will link the Twitter to this game in the description below. Thanks for watching.